Well, welcome, everybody. And of course, this is Toxic Prison. Kathleen Rumpf. I just, met her earlier, and, I thought it was really neat that she has the same number of kids and grandkids that I have. She has 4 children and 7 grands. Is that right?
I've never been married and I never had kids.
Oh! I got you mixed up then.
And God forbid them if I did.
I'm sorry. I don't know where I got you in this then. Well, let me tell you if this is correct then. Kathleen has been at Syracuse protesting for more than 2.5 decades. She's been arrested over 100 times
Not enough.
and says that is still not enough. For over 18 years, she has been a prison reform advocate. She started a jail ministry in 1986 in Syracuse after a 2-year stint in prison. Is that correct?
I joined it, I didn't start
And
it.
you have now recently been arrested in Georgia, and you're carrying the brace with you right now at this point in time. And all those experiences, I think, are fantastic, and I welcome you here.
You are a sweetheart. So, I am a Catholic worker. Hi, welcome. So why don't we go around, and if you just want to say a little bit about, in terms of why you might be interested in prison, jail, or if you want to, but you don't have to, okay? Like you might be going there, or anyway. All right. Hi. We'll start here.
I'm Maria Berg from Sioux Casa Catholic Worker in Chicago, and I live on the south side of Chicago. Another Catholic worker community in Chicago is on the west side, and there 70% of men have been incarcerated or are incarcerated or are on some form of monitoring. And so it became clear shortly after moving to Chicago just how damaging prison is. And so just wanted to learn more about that.
My name is Brian Trout from Casa Maria, Milwaukee. I am a member of the Incarcerated Workers Organizing Committee, and I help out with a bunch of other anti-prison, either abolition or just whatever groups. And we also have like a, 53206, I think? It's like one of the highest incarceration counties or zip codes or whatever, I think in the
You
US.
should
or
just speak up a little.
Sorry. 53206, which is like northern parts of Milwaukee, is one of the highest incarceration rates of the zip code, per zip code. I believe in either US or Wisconsin, I forget.
For sure, Wisconsin.
For sure Wisconsin, but I think,
Wow.
yeah. Yeah, I'm not really too sure what like, all the different things that the Catholic Worker has done for prison abolition, but I'm very curious to know more.
My name is Barry Gawanter. I'm partially here because I'm a friend of Kathleen, but I'm also really interested in Catholic Worker. I am not a Catholic worker. I am a human and civil rights advocate, and I met Kathleen when I was director for the New York Civil Liberties Union for 18 years. And in that time, I began, because of Kathleen, to look at the jail in Syracuse, New York. And then 2 people died there, and I got involved in their cases. Their names were Raul Pinette Jr. and Janice Patterson, and it's important for me to say the names out loud and to keep their memories alive. And because of what I learned about the history of the jail from Kathleen, and because of what I learned about the current state of the jail in my investigation into Raul's death and Janice's death, I helped to organize an effort that led to the creation of a jail oversight entity in Syracuse, sort of like a CRV for the jail. And there's only 10 of them in the U.S., local oversight over local jail, and I now run that entity. And I would say that jail by nature is toxic, but the atmosphere within jails are toxic to both the inmates, the prisoners, the people who are held there, but also to the people who work there. So I'm happy to sit in on this and learn from others and learn more from my friend Kathleen.
My name is Paula. I'm with the Cleveland Catholic Worker in Ohio.
My experience is with, I'm part of a group called the Northern Ohio Detention Support Network. And so we provide support for immigrant detainees that are in the local county jails and in Youngstown at the main detention center there. And so we provide support for those in detention, immigrants in detention.
My name is Lauren. I'm from the Milwaukee Catholic Worker. I'm always interested in learning more about the prison industrial complex and hearing about your experiences.
I'm Jim. I'm at the New York City Catholic Worker, and I'm a fan of Kathleen's. I've certainly been in jail. I've never been in prison, but I've been writing about and working on jail issues for a very long time. And currently, we're trying to close Rikers Island, which, to their credit, is half the size it was 10 years ago in terms of population. That's not close to enough. It's a horrible, talk about it. So anyway, a few people in the Catholic worker community there are working on it, along with a lot of congregations, actually, which is good. And I've been involved in a lot of immigrant detention stuff. So, yeah, it's just...
Hi, my name is Kathleen Majera. I'm from Fredonia, New York, rural America, rural western New York. And my husband and I do prison ministry inside 2 medium security prisons and 1 like boot camp. We've done like Catholic services there. And so they put prisons in rural America, right? Because they give people jobs, right? So I think when we go inside, we don't always, and they're all men's facilities. And so I think you're so right. When we go inside, it's not only for the men that we listen to, and we work with Curix and Cephas, and listen to the men and have retreats, but it's also for the corrections officers who work there, because they too are serving a sentence, but a different kind of sentence, right? And so a lot of times when we go in there, it's like they talk to you, like as they, because you have to be guided through all these places, because you can't just walk around a medium security prison, especially as a woman. And so they too have burdens, and it's amazing. I feel like every time I walk into a prison, Christ is with me.
Steve Bagley from Norfolk Catholic Worker in Virginia. And so in our soup line at our hospitality house, we know all kinds of folks that are in and out of jail and prison. And we've been in and out of jail and prison ourselves. And just good to be with other people that are interested. There's not enough interest in our country and what goes on inside our jails and prisons.
Lincoln, Milwaukee Catholic Worker. I think I'm particularly interested in this issue, just especially because of how prison sentences have been used to destroy and harm the African American communities in the United States. And so yeah, interested to continue this discussion.
Okay. Charlie Bowman from Buffalo, New York. I'm interested in the prisons, and my dear friend who's been on parole for 25 years now in New York State. He's probably the longest serving parolee in New York State. And he doesn't deserve to be on parole. And we also have a problem with the Erie County Holding Center in Buffalo. Recently, last year, India Cummings died in that prison. She was the 24th person to die under the current sheriff of Erie County. And she died because she didn't receive any medical care, and the physicians have recently signed off on that, saying, yes, she did not receive any medical care for 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks. And so that is unfolding politically and legally at this point.
Paul, next, they're introducing themselves.
Sorry, I'm Paul Frazier from Arkport Catholic Worker.
And we're also saying why we're interested in the jail
I've
issues.
avoided jail a lot, and if I get to the opportunity, I would want to learn more. I worked with the jail ministry office in Syracuse for a number of years, and found it fascinating to be able to be in on the pods to meet one-on-one with people who were being held, mostly because of racism and poverty.
I was one of the founders of Jail Ministry, too. Which is how many years now?
1976. I was the first arrestee when we were beginning. Anyway, glad to be here.
I'm Ann McManaman, Youngstown, Ohio Catholic worker, and I guess I chose this because Youngstown is known as Jail City, and it is Prison City. There's every form of government and privately owned prisons there, and we've gone through a lot of transition with that. I was in prison ministry for a number of years, found it very discouraging until we moved into the Catholic worker and developing that. It's about 10 years old this year. But we find that most of the people that come to the house, and we get about anywhere from 75 to 100 a night, more than 2/3 have been in prison some form, and they have a violent feeling about the people who have taken care of them, generally speaking. So I was sort of hopeful to be with other people, I guess, the same as was said. And we have miles to go on that one.
I'm Sarah Sandine, and I'm also with the Youngstown Dorothy Day House Catholic worker. And I'm slowly getting involved with prisons and what I could do to become more a part of that. And I chose this to become more educated in this field and just try to do more to get involved. And it's just it's just, when you read about the stuff going on, it's just hard to believe anymore that this still exists, and there's just so much unfairness and treatment with our justice system.
Yeah, Tom Law, I'm right here with the, I came definitely partly because of Kathleen Rump. I figured if what I know of her, she probably is a good person to give me a little more education on this, speak to it. I've been in a few prisons, visiting with the JCs at Auburn Prison. I visited a friend at Jamesville and saw how they get in there. And I've been arrested 3 times in not too recent past for different things that are questionable. And so I see how human the justice system is in terms of their actions are questionable, I think, in a lot of cases. I've also, about 8 years ago, I was here in Rochester for a hearing on the Rockefeller drug laws, in which they said prisoners 5,000 are released a year in Monroe County, I believe is the figure. And the agencies there, about 30 agencies, said their funding was such that they could adequately address maybe a quarter, 20 to 30% of the needs of the prison released population. And finally, the statistics are terrible in terms of racism and the Rockefeller drug laws. I mean, it's so ridiculous that you wonder how something so irrational can happen at a supposedly legislative level.
I'm Claire Schaefer Duffy, and I'm here mostly to learn. And my knowledge of prisons is experiential, not in the form of any formal ministry. I was in jail in the 80s around nuclear disarmament, and my oldest, I got the name for our oldest from Niantic, and then spent just time in lockup during a Witness Against Torture demonstration several decades later, and I was surprised at how harsh that it was. Just 30 hours in DC, but it was harsh, and And similarly at Cooks County in Las Vegas, and it's a random comparison between state prisons and a holding cell, but I found is this, I know there's just an increasing severity and kind of oppression that's happening in prison. But here's the paradox. I became very close friends with Robert, who was on death row, and from North Philly, accused of a murder, and he said he wasn't, and he was hoping I could tell his story and that it would be written. And he got cancer. He's a little bit older than I am, and the cancer came quickly and ferociously, and he wanted compassionate release. No, they won't give that, which is just so inhumane. But the last time that I saw him, he was so weakened. He was brought in a wheelchair and shackled, which also was just like very, very, very hell, and the guard that brought him and shackled him was this young black man, and Robert's black, and I could feel the young man feeling the misery of his role, but it was this very clear. Anyway, here in the worst, external, he says through the glass, "I love you." And it was said so much from the heart, friend to friend. It was like, here God breaks through. And so, I don't know, I'm rambling, but this place where you can see Christ, in such an abysmal reality is kind of stunning sometimes.
I'm Ralph from Norfolk, and been doing some letter writing and some investigations and some demonstrations, but my issues with the prison are like, it's the new slavery, slave labor. It's not right. And in Hampton Roads, we've had so many deaths and suicides in the last few years. It's just really like toxic. And one kid died because he had been accused of taking $5 worth of snacks from the 7-Eleven. He didn't get a court date, like, any time that, like, they didn't tell him when he was ever going to be seen. He was there for 2 weeks, and he was like, I can't take this anymore. Anyway, yeah, the prisons should all be burned.
Yeah.
They're not doing their job.
I'm Tom from Rochester, New York, and I agree. Prison should be burned. I've been in prison and jail a few times myself, and visiting in some cases and being there a couple of times myself. But I'm here mostly just to learn. I haven't had a particular ministry at all. And I'm just embarrassed that this country has such a penal system like this. Just to be American is terrible in regards to this.